Welcome to the Jewish Sports Podcast. I am your host, Roy Kessel, and today we are very excited to have with us special guest Neil Keller. Neil is a Jewish sports and entertainment historian and has amassed an amazing collection of Jewish sports memorabilia from many different eras. So, Neil, thank you for joining us and welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
We know you have so much to talk about, such depth of knowledge. So, for our audience, this is going to be the first of a series of presentations with Neil. Some will be in a podcast format, some will be in a webinar, an interactive format where our audience will be able to join us live and engage and ask questions. But, Neil, before we start going into this whole collection, tell us yourself, how did you first develop your passion for sports?
Well, I always liked sports. Growing up, I played basketball, baseball. Used to have a lot of trophies, but when I moved to Florida, I threw most of them out. But I've always liked sports. Sports is a good distraction from today's society. And so you want to know how I started my collection, or?
Well, so what sports did you play when you were growing up?
My favorite sports, and they're still now, I like basketball. I went to the University of Maryland, so I got into college basketball, and I actually like college basketball more than the NBA. Then I like football, then baseball, and then it drops down to hockey. And in the Olympics we just had, I like basketball first, men and women's, track, swimming, and gymnastics. I used to like Olympic boxing, but now that the Americans don't do that well, I've lost a lot of interest in that.
Well, what's interesting is different sports attract people at different ages. And so, as you were growing up, you talked about some of your favorites. But as you started embarking on your career, tell us, what that looked like for you from a professional standpoint, in terms of where you grew up and went to school and then how you
Okay,
started in the early stages of your career.
I grew up in the Washington, D.C. suburbs in Silver Spring, Maryland. It was a very Orthodox Jewish neighborhood. And I've always been proud of my religion. I remember my mother had a button that said, "Kiss me, I'm Jewish." And I don't know, we've always were raised to be proud of our religion. And I collected like baseball cards when I was a kid, but then I stopped. And then I went to the University of Maryland and I got season tickets and I went to basketball and football games for years. And then they moved to the Big Ten, which I didn't like as much, but I guess it's better for Maryland due to financial reasons.
Yeah, the financial reasons take control, but I think that one of the things we've lost in crazy realignment of all of the college sports is those local rivalries, right? If Maryland looked
Oh,
at the
absolutely.
ACC. And
I miss Maryland playing Duke and Carolina. I mean, it's crazy. You have UCLA, USC, Oregon, and Washington in the Big Ten. You have Stanford and Cal in the ACC. I hope one day they make 4 regions, 4 pods, Southern Conference, Northern, East, and West, and they put Maryland in the South, where you can play Carolina, Florida State. I mean, that's where they belong anyway.
yeah, and so what's interesting is so many of us have that passion for sports. We play sports. We watch a lot of sports. Growing up, going through college. So take us through your early career. A lot of people want to work in sports. A lot of people go other directions and follow their career, and you kind of started in a different direction and then had your career there and came back towards sports.
Yeah, I mean, I graduated with a degree in accounting, and I'm a CPA, and I was a CPA for decades. And then I worked in the federal government. We even audited Dr. Fauci's office. I worked at the Department of Health and Human Services. And it was fun. I got to travel. I remember going to Chicago, staying in the Palmer House. And I even did an audit in Alaska. And it was fun, but, then I got older and I wanted, you get tired of it. And I wanted something more with social interaction. And I was speaking about my collection. In 2004, I spoke at the Baseball Hall of Fame in Cooperstown. They did a movie on me. I spoke in Toronto and other cities. And I like educating people on famous Jewish people.
So where did that passion come from, right? You're doing audits, you're doing, your CPA, you're going through that whole process. And this is a very different direction, right? People talk about the detail orientation that you clearly still have with what you do, right? But this has a very creative side and creative element to what you're doing and how you're amassing your collection. So how did this start?
God, that was hard. At one point, I was married, had 2 kids. Well, I still have 2 kids. And I was also had my job and I was doing my collection. In 1986, I went to a flea market in Washington, D.C., and I bought a Sandy Koufax card. And I always knew Sandy was Jewish. And so I bought it, and I said, I'm going to collect every Sandy Koufax card. Years later, I went to 2 games with him, and I'm sitting there quizzing him, saying, Sandy, how many games did you win in your last year? He won 27. And I know everything about Sandy. He went to Lafayette High School and whatever. So then I collected Jews in baseball. Then I expanded to basketball, football, and everything. Then I did entertainment, politics, Nobel Prize winners, the Holocaust. The Holocaust items I have are unbelievable. And I'm now doing a national speaking tour, and I will be going international too.
So you talk about some of these items that you've collected from that era, right? There's very difficult to find those type of items. So when you first started this, what was the trigger? What made you say, aha, this is what I need to start collecting?
Well, I just said, I'm going to try to get every Sandy Koufax card made. It's one thing to get the Topps cards. Topps was founded by a Jewish guy named Cy Berger in Brooklyn, and I became friends with Cy. Cy and his friend Arthur Shorin founded Topps. And so I got to meet him. But then there's oddball cards. People make cards. They made them in Pop-Tarts, cereal boxes. Cards came Nestle chocolate, everything. Everyone was making trading cards. They make trading cards of shows like 90210. I collect them because there was Ian Ziering, Tori Spellman, and Gabriel Carter's. And so I like to collect. I have stuff for people. I have equipment, trading cards, autographs, you name it, magazines. It's actually a lot of fun. And when I do my talks, my PowerPoints, I bring some of the items. And so it makes the PowerPoint more effective with visual aids.
So, I think that's one of the things that really struck me when we had a chance to meet recently. You were, visiting Chicago and had some of these items with you for your presentations, and you had them preserved so elegantly in the plastic and everything else, and very careful with how you take care of each of these items. But it was just so apparent the passion that you have for this storytelling and highlighting the details of what's going on behind this, right? The stories were what amazed me, the depth of the story of how you acquired that piece of memorabilia.
Right.
The ones where you showed me, not only the actual piece of memorabilia, but how that memorabilia was replicated in a program or a newspaper or something else. And you actually had the original photos.
Right. Well, I think in any career, you need passion to be successful. So I have passion in my religion, and I like educating people. And the reason why I'm talking about the Holocaust now is because anti-Semitism has soared. But there's many famous stories behind this. Like with the Holocaust items, there was Victor Young Perez, a Tunisian Jew, murdered by the Nazis. He was ordered to fight other Jews in Auschwitz to amuse the guards. I tracked down the family afterwards, and I have family photos. I have Victor with his mother, his father, his siblings at the beach. I almost feel like I'm part of the Perez family, Victor Young Perez. And I feel like I really know them. I have a picture when Victor wasn't feeling good. He was in bed, and his mother was in the picture, she's handing him a bowl of chicken noodle soup. That's powerful. For the Holocaust items, I want to humanize the Jews that the Nazis dehumanized.
Well, those stories have been told and obviously can never be told enough as we all sit here living through what's going on in Israel, right? The phrase never again comes back to strong meaning. I don't think any of us believe these types of things could happen again in today's world. But when you look at this, right, these are items that are not only old in terms of years, but in terms of the quote unquote mileage that they've gone through and the difficulty that these items have survived, right? It's amazing that these have survived that much.
Well, for example, Victor Perez, Helene Mayer. I mean, there were a lot of people, not Helene Mayer, but other ones. I was in touch with them. Everyone has passed away except for Agnes Coletti. I was literally like pen pals. Agnes and I wrote each other letters. And I have items, and when I showed these, they actually sat in my closet for decades. Then someone said, Neil, there's a documentary on Victor Young Perez. And I used to talk about Sandy Koufax, Hank Greenberg, Sid Luckman, Chicago Bears. And I didn't think anyone wanted to hear about the Holocaust. And I found them in the closet, and I said, oh, thank God they're here. And I went to the Holocaust Museum in Washington, D.C. in 2018. And the lady met me, and then we went into another room and met the whole senior staff. And the director cursed and said, "What?" I won't say the words. He said, wow, we thought this was destroyed 80 years ago in Europe. Then I had a Zoom call with Yad Vashem, and Yad Vashem was saying, we've never seen this. We were looking for these items of these boxers, and you have them all. So, but they did know, because in April of 1993, I wrote an article in the Jewish Week called Jewish Athletes Under Nazi Rule. And the Israeli embassy called me up, and I told them, I met with them, that I had some of these items way back in 1993. So I was helping Yad Vashem, but they weren't that knowledgeable with sports. So they put me in touch with the International Jewish Sports Hall of Fame in Netanya. And they were amazed. They can't believe that an American had these. They were expecting like a person, not a Holocaust survivor, to own these items. Now, if you want to know how I got them, I'm ready to tell you. You want to know how I got all these items?
Would love to hear some of the stories. I know we're going to do individual sessions on some of these eras in particular in terms of individual items, but I think it's instructive for our audience to hear some of that storytelling and the passion, right? I know your energy and passion shine through.
it was easy to track down like Americans in sports or entertainment. You know, I'd write to them. I'd write if it's an entertainer. I started making great contacts. They did a movie on me, and I got to know a lot of the agents in Hollywood. And then baseball, if I wanted to get, let me see, pick the year, 1990, like Jose Bautista was pitching for the Orioles. I would then contact the Orioles, the stadium. And I had an incredible response. They loved my idea of collecting Jews. And I met Jose Bautista. It doesn't sound Jewish. The mother escaped Nazi Germany and went to the Dominican Republic. And Jose showed me he had a Star of David necklace. So it was much easier to get autographs of Steven Spielberg, Barbara Streisand, you name it. But the Holocaust was harder. And some of these I started when I was using a typewriter. That was before Google and, the computers. And the first person I wrote to, I did a self-addressed stamped envelope. And I said, please let me know if you have any items of these people that are Jewish. I found a magazine, and it had European sellers. It was called Ephemera. Those are people that collect paper, like magazines and photographs. And the guy wrote back, I will never help you. He wasted his time and the stamp. So then I had to devise a new method. I said, I better not tell people that I'm Jewish, because there's still a lot of anti-Semitism in Europe. And I also added non-Jewish names. Like, you can't tell Victor Young Perez is Jewish. But I also wanted Albert Einstein and a variety of other names that sounded more Jewish. But I added I added Winston Churchill, Rocky Marciano, you name it, Sonia Henning, the figure skater. So no one knew what I was doing. If I was really collecting Winston Churchill, I'd probably have 100 of his autographs now. Soon I tracked down people that knew the Victor Young Perez family. And everyone, I tracked down Ebola Kazakh. She won the gold medal in the high jump. I became friends with Elie Wiesel and Simon Wiesenthal, and I got more connected through them. And you're right, it would be too much to tell you now, but I acquired incredible items, family items. No one in the world has these. I have 2 trophies of Kid Francis. He was the Italian boxer. And I have the silver and bronze trophy he had in his house. And the family told me the Nazis took him from Paris, took him to Auschwitz, and they stole the gold one. So the Nazis probably touched the other 2 trophies, and that's kind of like a chilling effect. I have just a bunch of items that when we do our podcast on, we could do the podcast on Jews in sports and Jews in non-sports, because I have a rare trading card of Anne Frank that the Anne Frank house in the Netherlands didn't even know existed. But, it's a lot of fun, and I enjoy the challenge.
So we're going to put you on the spot a little bit. I know you've got amazing collection of items. So I'm going to be completely unfair. I'm going to ask you to pick your favorite item. If I let you keep one item, what would that be?
It's not even nearly the most expensive. I would say my 1961 Topps of Sandy Koufax, card number 344, because that was my very first card. And then Sandy signed it for me.
Okay.
But I have
so,
things.
I think you answered one of the questions that we often ask in terms of your favorite Jewish athlete. So I'm guessing from what you're telling us that would be Sandy Koufax, or is there a different person?
Well, my favorite Jewish athlete, he was born on December 30th, 1935. He was 6'2". He got a college basketball scholarship to Cincinnati, Went to Lafayette High School with Fred Wilpon. Even though Larry King said he knew him, he didn't. Larry was a few years older than him at Lafayette. So my favorite athlete was Sandy Koufax. Because he was a proud Jew. In 65, and against the Twins, he refused to pitch on Yom Kippur. And he inspired me. So Sandy Koufax is my favorite Jewish athlete.
So, you like a lot of different sports, right? So we're going to go a little bit different direction now, and we're going to say if you could be a commissioner of any sport, what sport would you like to be commissioner of?
I still say my favorite sport is basketball. Maybe it's because I went to the University of Maryland.
You're kicking Adam Silver out of his office, and you're taking over.
Adam Silver, I actually know Adam. I know Adam because I was friends for at least 20 years with David Stern. David became the commissioner in 1984 until 2014. And in 1996, they had the 50th anniversary of the NBA. So David and his staff asked me if I could help them track down all the old-time Jewish basketball players. And I was in touch with them all. Like Ozzie Sheckman was a good friend of mine. I visited him in Delray Beach. And ironically, I live in Delray Beach now. Ozzie on November 1st, and I don't have any computer. I'm not cheating. Ozzie scored the first basket on November 1st, 1946, when the Knicks beat the Toronto Huskies. And there were 6 Jews just on the Knicks. So I helped David Stern. And then when David retired, Adam and I stayed in touch. And in fact, Adam had the NBA film me in New York City. They wanted to film me on my knowledge and stories, behind-the-scenes stories on all the Jewish basketball players. And I actually have it on a DVD.
So you've had that great opportunity to be with David Stern and with Adam Silver, and now you're taking over that role. So you're commissioner. What's the one change you want to see in the sport of basketball?
You know what could be really good? I think they stopped that rule where you call timeout and you get the ball advanced to half court. I didn't like that. But do you know what could be exciting? And you and I together can get this to David. I mean, to Adam. If they did a 4-point shot, half court, or maybe the basketball court's 94 feet, so maybe 45 feet. Steph Curry might want to try a 4-pointer at the end of the quarter. That could make it really exciting.
He might be able to make 5-pointers if they made him a 5-pointer. So, okay. So, we've heard a lot of those stories. Now turning to some of the Jewish side of things, what's your favorite Jewish holiday?
I know for some reason non-Jews think Hanukkah is a religious holiday, but it's not really. It's not like the high holidays. But I like Hanukkah, and I love it this year. You want to know why? Hanukkah starts, this is 2024. Hanukkah starts on Christmas. Did you know that? I love when Hanukkah and Christmas are around the same time. I don't like when Hanukkah is like almost near Thanksgiving. But I like Hanukkah. It's fun. There were presents. And I'm about like happiness and everything.
So what's your favorite Jewish food then?
Wow. I'm going to be so boring. I'll say a cinnamon raisin bagel with Novolox spread. Although not many people like this, I like herring. Do you like herring?
I'm not a fan of herring, but my parents that grew up in South Africa love herring, and that's a very common thing that they enjoyed at all of their functions and things like that. So when you were growing up, yep, you get a lot of herring down there.
I get it. I don't eat the stuff around it. I eat the herring. But some people have never heard of it. I'll even eat gefilte fish. I was never into like mandel bread. What's that? Babka and some of the other items.
All the good stuff that I like, the desserts. Um,
Right.
and then what about your favorite Jewish memory when you look back on your life? What's your favorite Jewish memory?
I hate talking about Koufax so much. I was going to say seeing him at the Dodgers spring training game. I would say, for me, speaking at the Baseball Hall of Fame, we had this weekend in 2004. It was all about Jews in baseball. And I met, I picked up, because I was helping on the committee, I picked up Mike Epstein and Larry Yellen at the airport, or wherever it was. I don't even know if they had an airport near there. And I was hanging out with Ron Bloomberg, Kenny Holtzman. I was in a hotel. Jeremy Schaap was right next to me in hotel room. I met Elliot Maddox. I can't remember. There was a bunch of people there. It was so much fun. Although I was with the Team Israel baseball team just last year. They played in the World Baseball Classic in Miami, and I was hanging out with them at the pool, and I got to know a lot of the players. And I was hoping when they have a fantasy camp or something, I can help them out. I can give a talk on Jews in baseball. There's a thunderstorm. And all the Jews that played. Right now there's like 20 Jews in the major leagues. Incredible.
Well, the numbers are growing. It's great to see Israel baseball having that success. I think you're going to have your hands full going forward, because I think the amount of Jewish sports memorabilia is just going to continue to increase when you look at the success of Jews in the athletic side of the world of sports, right? Jews obviously have been very active on the business side as agents in the media, in all kinds of other capacities. So it's great to see this success. And Neil, just tease some of the other segments that we're going to do. If you break them down into categories, I know one is going to be on the Holocaust, on items that you have from Jewish sports during the Holocaust era. What are some of the other eras that we're going to cover?
Well, I know it by heart. I'll do it in alphabetical order. We got Jews in baseball. Lippman Pike was the first player. Jews in basketball. I'll tell you how Red Auerbach single-handedly integrated the NBA. Boxing, Benny Leonard. He went undefeated for 8 straight years. Entertainment. There's so many Jews in entertainment. Wait a minute. Are we doing non-sports? There's Jews in football. Sid Luckman 1 year threw 7 touchdowns in a game. And his Bears they were called the Redskins then, 73-0. There's hockey. How many people know the hockey MVP trophy is named after a Jewish family? The Hart Trophy is named after David Hart, one of the first Jewish residents of Canada. What else? I have Jews in golf, tennis. If we're talking sports, I have Jews in everything. Chess, lacrosse. I also collect Jews in Hollywood.
We're looking forward to having those sessions and to bringing some of our viewers and listeners to participate in some webinar Q&As. I think it'll be great after they've heard some of the initial stories to have that opportunity just to engage and ask questions and see some of the items that you have. So, Neil, I want to thank you for coming on with us today. We appreciate your time, and we're excited to learn more on the upcoming episodes.
Well, I want to thank you for having me. I enjoyed meeting you in Chicago.
And for all of our viewers and listeners, we appreciate you taking time to join us on the Jewish Sports Podcast. My name is Roy Kessel, signing off. Please remember to live generously. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.